And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Samuel Chong, certified court interpreter and Chinese translator living in Los Angeles, who arranged for the Chinese publication of Michel Desmarquet's book Thiaoouba Prophecy, The Golden Planet. This book is about Desmarquet's alien abduction, and it has been a #1 bestseller in Taiwan and a bestseller in China. Samuel, thank you so much for being my guest, and welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
So right off the bat, where does the word Thiaoouba, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, come from?
Yes, the word Thiaoouba is actually the name of the planet in which the author, Michel Desmarquet, was taken to for 9 days and then came back. And that word is actually pronounced exactly that's the way you pronounced it. Some people think that it's very similar to the pronunciation of Thiaoouba, which is Jehovah. And in fact, there's a connection over there.
That's interesting. I never thought about that it's very close to Jehovah.
Yes, it is. Because the book details the author's experiences, and it also includes a lot of the information in which the ETs with advanced civilization told him, informed him about when the Earth, the different kinds of people on Earth came to the Earth, where they came from. And also, interestingly enough, a lot of stories in the Bible, how the stories in the Bible came about.
It's my understanding that Jehovah is a word for God.
Well, God is God. Jehovah is Jehovah, according to the book. God is the creator of everything. Mm-hmm. He created the planet and the stars, and also he created people and animals. Jehovah is actually the name in which could be considered to be Thiaoouba, the group of ETs that has been monitoring the activities of the people on Earth.
So how did you get interested in this book in the first place?
Well, in the very beginning, since I was young, I was very curious about the different phenomena that occurred on Earth, such as who built the Great Pyramid and why did so many planes and ships disappear in the Bermuda Triangle, and are there really ghosts around? And what about reincarnation? So I was very curious about this kind of topics. I also wanted the people on Earth to advance at a much faster pace. So I thought, why don't we learn from the ETs who have advanced civilizations? We can just learn from them and imitate their technologies and their ways of living, so we can advance much faster. That was considered to me as a shortcut to moving faster or progressing faster. So I was intentionally looking for books written by contactees of ETs. So when I came to the US, one day I was searching on Amazon, and I accidentally found this book. Originally, it was titled Abduction to the Ninth Planet. And then I borrowed it from the library, I read it, and I couldn't put it down.
And then at some point in your life, you decided to search out Desmarquet himself and pay him a visit in Vietnam. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. So I read this book. I thought in the very beginning, oh, this is just another ET contactee book. It could be true. It could be imaginary. And then, but when I read the chapter on who is Christ, I really couldn't put it down. I was astonished because until I read that chapter, I didn't believe anything written in the Bible, because to me, Bible is just a fantasy. It couldn't have been true because it's just doesn't make sense to me. But after I read that chapter, everything made sense to me. It made me realize how the stories in the Bible came about. It connects all the dots. So I decided that this book is a book of revelation to me. So I also read the postscript of the book. It says there are more astonishing or incredible things that he was not allowed to write in the book because we are far from understanding them. That really got me into frustration. I was really, really frustrated. I really wanted to find out what's more incredible that he was not allowed to write in the book. So that's why I was determined to pay a visit to him to find out exactly what he was not allowed to write in the book.
So what was he like?
He was an elderly gentleman, a French Australian. He was a typical French man with a French personality, in the sense that he was very proud of himself, yes, and also he was very sharp-minded. He played chess quite a bit, and I consider myself as an okay player, but I lost every time I played him.
Wow.
So I used the opportunity when playing chess with him to ask him questions, so that I thought he would tell me the things he was not allowed to write in a book when he was playing chess, somehow getting distracted. But he kept his mouth shut. He didn't tell me in the first time that I visited him. And he was also kind of depressed. That's what I found out recently, because he was telling me jokes all the time when I was in Vietnam, and some people tell me that he was trying to hide his depression. He was trying to hide his true emotional feelings of being sent back to a place which is considerably less, far more less advanced than the planet that he visited for 9 days. Because when you think about it, when he was invited, or maybe he was abducted to visit a place which seemed to him like a paradise, and then he was told, you don't belong here, you have to go back to Earth and then write a book. He was really, really kind of depressed about everything that the way it is on Earth. So I think he was extremely depressed. And he wanted to die and to really have his astral body to be recycled to a higher category of planet.
How was he abducted?
Well, he in the middle of night one day in the winter time of Australia, which is summertime our time in the northern hemisphere, he didn't know why, but he wrote a note to his wife, I will be gone for 10 days and there's absolutely no need to worry about me. And then he put a note on his refrigerator table, and then he was lifted up in the air. And then he was taken into a place by a very, very tall ET, a blonde, tall and beautiful ET, to a parallel universe. The reason he was taken into a parallel universe was to prevent people from on Earth to see them. And then he was taken into a spaceship. Their spaceship is about 100 meters in diameter. It's a round-shaped spaceship. And then there he went, and then he was taken to Thiaoouba.
The subtitle of the book is called The Golden Planet. Is it called that because the planet is completely gold or golden color, or what?
It's completely in golden color. When he was about to abort on that planet, he saw that planet seems like having a golden mist surrounding it. It was very shining and very, very bright. It's like the planet is surrounded with golden dust. So that's the name, the golden planet.
It kind of reminds me of the movie Dune, where they have, there's that spice in the air, but I think it's more of an orange color.
Well, it's much prettier, more beautiful than Dune, because it not only has the golden color, but the variety of different colors, which are extremely bright. And he had to wear a mask, like sunglasses, to filter out the light. Otherwise, he would have been kind of drunken by the colors.
So does the book say why they chose him over some other Earthling?
Yes, for two reasons. One reason was that he is a man of action, so he takes directions and he acts immediately. This is what I found out about him as well. But the more important reason is that he was one of the few docos of the people on Earth. A doco, actually a soko. Soko is a person who has had 80 previous lives. So he has lived 80 lives. He had lived 80 previous lives on Earth or on other planets. So when he was taken, he was on his 81st life.
Have they actually abducted anybody else?
Throughout history, yes. One other person is, according to Michel Desmarquet, is Enoch in the Bible, the book of Enoch, because what Enoch described, the heavenly-like scenario is very similar to what Michel Desmarquet experienced and saw. So when he read the book of Enoch, he was astonished and convinced that Enoch was taken by the same group of ETs.
So what was the point of them abducting him anyways? Like, why did they want to do that?
Well, according to the ETs, we are at a critical moment of time on Earth, a critical cross path, and they're trying to help us to understand the meaning of life and also some of the other important things so that we can, or some of us can make the right decisions. And they're saying that we are focusing too much on our material life and not the spiritual aspect of life. We are developing technologies that are inclined to make us more materialistic. They're suggesting that we should focus on the technologies that can help us to grow spiritually. They also emphasize some of the other points, such as environmental issues and also some of the political systems on Earth. It also clarifies some of the stories written in the Bible. They're saying that the organized religions are really a curse on Earth because people should really look into their own soul or inside themselves to find answers, not to follow a specific religious belief.
So I'm assuming that they instructed him to write a book?
Yes, they instructed him to write a book, and they instructed him not to change any word and not to add any personal opinions in the book.
Did they give it to him like a download and then he just kind of wrote it out? Because, not to change any details, that's, quite a task.
Yes, they indeed gave him a lot of downloads. After he came back, he slept for like almost 2 days or so, actually almost 3 days or so. And then after he told what happened to him to his family members, he began writing. And sometimes he would forget the specific details. And then he suddenly would have this all kind of flashbacks or memories or downloads sent to him by the ET. So he was able to write the specific details that were written in the book. When you read the book, you're going to discover that this book is very specific on many facts. Sometimes is so specific to the number of years and the number of the sizes and also the distances. It's very, very specific. It's not like any other spiritual or new age books in which the content is very general and with no with very little specific facts. But this book is contains a lot of very specific but verifiable facts.
So when he got back, what did his family think? Did they believe him?
Well, his family was divided. His wife didn't believe him at all. His wife thought that he was having an affair with another woman. To this day, his wife still thinks so. And his son believed him because his son always believed in the existence of ETs.
Have you yourself ever seen an ET?
Well, personally, no, I have not. Not even a UFO. But I was always fascinated by this topic. I'm a very rational person. I work as a certified court interpreter. Mm-hmm. I interact with a lot of lawyers and attorneys and also doctors. And, in order to convince me, you have to show foundations, you have to show me proof, you have to show me specific verifiable facts. So in the sense, to me personally, I agree with some of the concepts discussed in some of the new age books, but they really don't convince me that much, as much as this book, because most of the other books don't contain specific verifiable facts.
All right, let's get into it. Give us some of those specific verifiable facts.
So, for example, when when Michel Desmarquet was taken into the spaceship, they disinfected him using yellow and blue light. So this is like a minor detail in the book, but I looked it up. I searched the about the functions of blue light, I discovered that Harvard Medical School had a paper on the effects of blue light, saying that certain wavelengths of blue light are antibacterial and antiviral. So the ETs used blue light to disinfecting. And I found that to be fascinating because different from some of the other supposedly ET or alien abduction stories, this author, when he was taken onto Thiaoouba, he got disinfected, while the other abductees, they didn't get disinfected. So it makes me wonder if those stories are really from the real ETs, or those are just some of the secret government programs. This is one fact. The other fact was that the author, written in the late 1980s, he wrote that there was a tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. And there was also another tomb next to it, which was a tomb of Jesus' brother. So, Michel Desmarquet never went to Japan until the day of his death. He never visited Japan in his entire life. And he mentioned to the specific details that there was a tomb in Shingo Village, Japan, and then there was another tomb next to it. This made me think that this story is true, and also it connects all the dots in the Bible. So this is another interesting detail. And other facts include that the book also mentions the interventions of the ETs to our activities on Earth. For example, in the 1960s, the US government, according to the book, the US government sent millions of needles into space. I looked it up, and it turned out to be Project Westward. And the US government, the NASA, sent out a few hundred millions of needles into space in order to improve our telecommunications. And then the needles disappeared. According to this book, the disappearance of the needles that the US government sent was due to the interventions of this group of ETs, because they believed that those needles would have been harmful to us, the people on Earth.
Let me stop you there. When you say needles, I mean, are you like surgical needles or what?
The needles were made of copper. It's very thin, like needle-like kind of metal objects that the NASA sent out to space. They believe that by sending out this kind of metal needles into space, then the telecommunication signals would kind of bounce back to Earth at a like closer distance to Earth. Then it's going to increase the effects or the resolutions, or maybe it's going to improve the telecommunications of the Earth communication systems. So that's what they believed.
Wow. And it talks about that in the book?
Yes, it talks about the needles in the book. And then some of the readers found out that it was Project Westward.
Are there any other facts?
Yes. He also mentions about how they intervened during World War II. They intervened against Germany at that time to prevent Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. In the sense, they helped the United States to develop the atomic bomb much faster than Germany. They believe that if they hadn't intervened, there would have been like 3 times more deaths on Earth. So they chose like the United States, because the US at that time was a country that was very sincere in helping the people in the world.
What do those ETs look like?
So they're very beautiful. They're tall, like 8 or 9 foot tall. They look like women, very beautiful women with blonde hair and very kind of beautiful breasts. But they're hermaphrodites. They have the bodies, they have the genital parts of male and female together. So, and they speak all the different languages. They can do telepathy. They can perform real magic, which is a form of illusions. And they can also levitate. They can move things around. They can also materialize objects. So they can basically perform all the miracles performed by Jesus, because according to them, Jesus was sent by them.
So Jesus was one of them.
Yes, was one of them, yes. Well, actually, there are two Jesus Christs. One born out of Virgin Mary was actually Jesus, the Jesus who couldn't perform miracles, but he later went to India, traveled to China, and died in Japan. And then he was buried in the tomb of Jesus Christ in Shingo Village, Japan. That Jesus could not perform miracles. The Christ, on the other hand, was one of them who was shapeshifted into the appearance of Jesus. He was able to perform miracles because he remembered all the he knew how to heal people, how to walk on water, and then his main mission was to preach spirituality and love. And he was crucified on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after, because he wanted to show that there's life after death, and then there is reincarnation.
What about the virgin birth itself? Do they mention that at all?
Yes. They really wanted to create like a phenomenon to make the people at that time believe that the little baby Jesus was born in a very, very extraordinary way, in which he was the Messiah. And then he was a special person indeed. They did that because by putting an embryo inside of Virgin Mary's uterus. So little baby Jesus was born, and then the things, the stories in the Bible were mostly accurate in the sense that the king killed more than 2,600 babies in the city, and then I would suggest viewers or listeners to really read the book to find out more specific details, because this book is a very dense book with a lot of very interesting information and details. And I think it's really hard to squeeze everything into one show.
Sure.
But we can talk more about that. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do they comment on how Jesus made his way all the way to Japan? Because I would assume most people of that time period never traveled more than 50 miles their entire life.
Yes. Well, little Jesus, the Jesus born from Virgin Mary, was a very spiritual person, because he was really highly evolved spiritually too. But because when a person reincarnates into on Earth, he or she would go across the river of oblivion to forget everything that happened in his or her previous lives. So he forgot all the knowledge that he accumulated in his previous life, such as performing all the miracles. But he was highly spiritual in a way. So that's actually recorded in the Bible as well. He was a very, very smart person. He would have a conversation with preachers in the temple, and people were amazed at his mental alertness. And then he traveled to India. So there was a story. There were records about Jesus in India. Very, very interesting stories at that time too. I wasn't able to find any records of Jesus traveling to China, because I searched in the Chinese historical records. I couldn't find anything about Jesus going to China, but there was records of Jesus in Japan. And there are actually a lot of stories around that village, and people in the village still sing songs that sounded like Hebrew language. And also they had customs that were very, very different from other cities in Japan. And so strange that people think that that people in the village got it from elsewhere. So it's very interesting.
Can you tell us about any other ways that the book relates to the Bible or speaks about the Bible?
Yes. It explains specific details on about Exodus, how Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt. it mentions that it was the ETs, this group of ETs, that opened the Sea of Reeds, not the Red Sea, but the Sea of Reeds, and actually it corrects many of the mistakes in the Bible according to the book, because according to this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, Moses was actually not a Hebrew, but Egyptian. And then the Egyptian soldiers really didn't follow the Hebrew, so no soldier died. So they wandered in the desert for about 4 years, not 30 years or 40 years. And also most of the things written in the Bible about Mount Sinai was correct, but there are some minor complications. So this is one thing. And also they really gave the Hebrews manna. That's for sure. That's actually a space. That's actually like a food for the spacemen, the astronauts to eat, because it's very compactable and it's very nutritious, but it rots after 24 hours once it's being opened. And it also talks about the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and it details that it was them, this group of ETs, that distracted the two cities, not only because of sodomy, but more importantly, the people in the two cities punished the people who did good things to other people. So they believe that the people in the two cities were setting a very bad example to their neighbors. So they decided to distract the two cities.
Tell us about what they say about the pyramids of Egypt.
Yes, this is a very interesting topic. I'm glad you asked. According to them, the Egyptian pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, was actually built 17,000 years ago by a person from Atlantis named Thoth, Thoth. He actually was a regular person, but he was a very learned person from Atlantis. Atlantis was a continent that actually sank into the Atlantic Ocean. And the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built in about 9 years or so, using anti-gravitational technologies, and also using ultrasonic vibrational systems to cut the stones in a precise manner. It was used as an energy center because it can absorb the cosmic rays or cosmic energy. And the pharaohs in ancient Egypt used the Great Pyramid in the correct way to communicate with the ETs from other planets or on other planets. And it was also used to make rain because with the certain alloys, it could concentrate energy in a certain way that would affect the atmosphere, in the sense that the rain would come out and the rain would fall. So it was actually used in the correct way by pharaoh clips. It was never meant to be a tomb for the pharaohs. And I found that to be very fascinating because there have been recent researches by scientists or physicists suggesting that the Great Pyramid of Egypt was and is an energy center that could absorb and still absorbing the cosmic rays.
Do you think maybe generations after the pyramids were built, that knowledge was lost and then they just started burying people there?
I don't know if they really buried people there, but it's true that the knowledge was lost, especially after the continent Atlantis sank, and also there was another continent called Lemuria in the Pacific Ocean. It also sank about 14,500 years ago. So after these two continents sunk, most of the knowledge was lost because the people on these two continents really kept secrets of the knowledge that they obtained or they gained. They didn't pass the knowledge on to people elsewhere.
Do they tell in the book how these continents sank?
Yes. Lemuria, yes, but not Atlantis. For Lemuria, that's because and beneath the continent Lemuria, there was a lot of gaseous belts. So when volcanoes formed or erupted, it caused the gaseous belts to erupt as well. And so the entire continent sank. But there was some kind of remaining parts of the continent still existing here on Earth today. Part of it was the Easter Island, and part of it was the Hawaiian Islands. So I don't know if you know about these statues on Easter Island, the Maos.
Right.
That actually came from Lemuria. People on Lemuria had very advanced civilizations and also advanced technologies. They were able to use the same technologies that they used to build the Great Pyramid to build the statues on Easter Island. But before they were able to complete everything, the eruption or the disaster occurred. Almost the entire continent sunk.
On my channel, I have a lot of near-death experience guests. In the book, do they talk about life after death and reincarnation and things like that?
Yes. Not only does the book talk about it, it also describes the author's, Michel Desmarquet's 80 previous lives. And one of the main themes in the book is about reincarnation and also afterlife. Michel Desmarquet was shown in his meditative state, his previous 80 lives, in which he was told like the purpose of life on earth is to learn, is to grow spiritually and to react appropriately to the life challenges. For example, Michel Desmarquet was a mining worker in Germany who accidentally killed his wife, and then he learned things about it. And then he was a few times a beggar on streets, and he learned a lot of life lessons being a beggar. And he was also like a queen on another planet in which he ruled 1/3 of the entire planet. He learned many things being a queen, a ruler in that country. He also was a few times died very young. He was eaten by a lion in Africa. And then he got a few lessons from there. So life is like a learning experience, kind of an evolving reincarnative learning experience in which we have to experience everything. We experience being a ruler, being the richest person in the world, but we also experience being a poor person, like being a beggar, being a killer, and being a person who helped others. So it's more like a taste of everything in life, in which you have to accumulate knowledge, accumulate life lessons, spiritual lessons, in order to evolve to the next level. According to the ETs, we have 9 different levels. Only when one is purified spiritually can one be evolved to move on to the next level. And then after the next level, you rejoin with God.
Do they believe in God then?
Yes, they do. They believe strongly in God. They believe that God created everything, and we are part of God, and God is part of us. Because when God created human beings, it inserted a very small, tiny portion of itself into our bodies so that we can experience everything in life. When we experience everything, the spiritual lessons would send back to God, and then God experience the material life through us.
I'm assuming they say that all ETs are also part of God, right?
Yes, that's correct. All human beings, all ETs are part of God. Yes.
Do they talk like the life in between lives? Like, do we plan out our next life?
In this book, it doesn't really talk about it, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I strongly believe that there's a planning stage between lives. This book specifically talks about the choice. When you are being reincarnated, you are shown what is this going to be like in your next life. You get to choose whether you accept this life or you reject this life. So this is kind of like a choice that you make before you reincarnate. It doesn't really talk about planning, but you have the choice of accepting one or another.
What about ghosts?
Yes, according to the book, ghosts are really made of electrons. And because of static forces of electrons, ghosts resemble the person who was alive at that time. And because electrons also have memories, so ghosts remember the places that they loved or hated. So they frequently visit the places or haunted the places that they loved or hated. So ghosts are the electrons from the person who was alive. A person, a human being, not only has his or her physical body, but also astral bodies. Astral body is actually composed of electrons. When a person dies, 81% of the electrons of the astral body remains on Earth for 3 days and then goes away. The other 19% of electrons remain on Earth until they're recycled by nature. So ghosts are really composed of the 19 electrons that were made of the astral body of a person that supposedly to remain on Earth forever until they're recycled by nature. So in a sense, there's actually nothing to be afraid of ghosts. If you don't like the ghosts, if you don't want them to bother you, just use fire or a candle, because supposedly fire or candles can really make the electrons like disappear or have some kind of reaction so that they don't go around you.
It appears that they have been intervening in Earth's history throughout the years. Now they have a book written about them. Do you think that's enough? And or do you think they're still intervening in ways that we don't know about?
I think both. I think it is something that they're trying to help us indirectly by instructing the author to write a book. The reason they're helping us indirectly is that they use analogy, saying that if you're like a parent, and if you really want to help your child a mathematical problem, for example, 3 times 5, you wouldn't just give your child the answer directly, 15. You don't just do that. You help your son or daughter to understand the concept of solving this problem. 3 times 5 is actually 5 plus 5 and plus 5. You show them the ways to resolve the issues. Similarly, they're just like a guardian to us, like a parent or mentor to us. They don't just give us the solutions directly. They help us to understand the meaning of life, the purpose of living on Earth, and the general concepts on how to grow spiritually. So they don't just give you a solution for the current pandemic issue. They don't just show us that those are the people running behind the scenes, controlling or manipulating the politicians. They tell us that we should wake up, we should open our eyes to find out what's really going on behind the scenes. We find out the things happening behind everything, and then we find solutions ourselves. The book actually gives a solution to a lot of the issues on Earth, but it really is encouraging us to act together and to have the knowledge of everything in order to succeed in improving the lives of people on Earth. I also believe that they're helping us directly as well, but they're not telling us. They can transform themselves. They can shapeshift themselves to a regular person on Earth. And there's no way of knowing which person among us is one of them. So we just have to help ourselves, because according to them, God helps those who help themselves, and they never serve the meal on a plate.
In the book, do they talk about the other ET civilizations that are out there as well?
Yes. Specifically, the author was shown almost 200 of the bodies of other ETs. And those ETs lived on other planets. And some of them look like us, some of them look very different from us. But those were the bodies of other kinds of ETs who lived on other planets. It indicates that in our galaxy, there are about 200 or so civilizations on other planets. And the Lemurians actually came from another planet. The yellow people, the Chinese or Japanese, and also the black people came from another planet. The Caucasians came from another planet. And the Jewish people, the Hebrews, came from a different planet, a planet of a different category. So in a sense, we are all ETs from different planets, and we all arrived on Earth. And we have to learn how to coexist and how to evolve and how to grow spiritually.
Do you think that we all came here still in humanoid form, or we had to be manipulated into what we are now?
So we actually all came from different planets in humanoid form. For example, the yellow people and the black people came from a planet called the Bakritini. And on that planet, we all look alike with minor differences of skin color. And when we came to this planet, we also have to adapt to the climates and also the conditions on Earth. So we tend to be more alike after thousands or tens of thousands of years. So, but we actually look alike in a sense, in that sense.
The ETs must be not only far beyond us in technology, but as well as evolution and spirituality. Why did they take such a liking to us and want to help us?
Okay. So there are 9 different categories of planets in our galaxy or in the universe. We are category 1, the lowest level. The Thiaoubans, they're on category 9 planet. So each category has a different kind of role to play in the universe. We are like elementary school students. We learn the basic concepts. We learn the basic rules of living on Earth or surviving and to take life lessons. They, on the other hand, already passed this stage. They have accumulated enough knowledge to be able to live forever. They can regenerate any parts of their body. They can control their birth. But they also have a role in the universe, is to guide, is to provide mentorship to planets in a lower category. So they have been really monitoring our activities since the yellow and black people arrived on Earth. They provided material assistance, either directly or indirectly. And so they actually are just like our mentors. And some people may wonder, why don't they just appear to us directly and to show up in front of the White House? Well, as I answered before, we are not ready yet. We are still fighting against ourselves. We are like savages in their mind. We are not ready to receive their help directly. For example, if you see like in a forest, a group of monkeys or gorillas, and they're so savage, they kept fighting against each other. Would you like to show up to them and to tell them, we are here to help you out, don't fight against each other? Would you do that, or would you just wait until they're ready to live in a peaceful manner, and then you come in to provide direct help? For me, I would choose the latter. I would wait until they learn how to coexist, how to live in a peaceful manner, and then I would show up to give them more direct help. It's the same thing for us. We are not yet ready yet. When we are ready, they would show up for sure because they showed themselves up to the people in Lemuria about 14,500 years ago, communicating to them directly and also providing material help to them directly. Because the people on Lemuria was civilized enough to be able to interact with them in a more equal manner.
Why do you think this book is so popular in China?
Well, it's very interesting. I think it can be the works of many factors. First is that China is a country that has a very strict censorship on everything that's published there. And so there's a vacuum of this kind of similar books going into China. I was able to get it published because of a personal connection that I had with a consultant of the publisher. Mm-hmm. So once it's published, it filled the vacuum in China. So it got very popular. And also is probably also because of social media. One of the social influencers discussed the book, and then it got the words out, and also and then other social influencers began to talk about the book. One social influencer with 3 million subscribers discussed the book, and then people just became very interested in the content of the book. And I think another factor is probably, I would assume that the ETs were behind it. They were helping us in a very indirect way in getting this book published in both China and Taiwan. It's very interesting that how I met the author. And I think it's not a coincidence. It's something that happened, I think, predetermined, because I really didn't know where the author lived in Vietnam. I had a picture of where he lived in his bungalow. So I showed the picture to the taxi driver, and then the taxi driver just took me to that place. So I don't think that's by coincidence. I think this is something that's very interesting.
When you showed up to his door unannounced, how did he react?
Well, when I arrived at his bungalow, he was sleeping. He was taking a noon nap. When he woke up and then met me, he was annoyed. He didn't want people to bother him because of the book. He wanted the travelers to meet him by chance. I tried to ask him a lot of questions in the book, and he just said to me, read the book in his thick French accent. So he was really annoyed. But then just the day before I was about to depart, he showed me the contract that he signed with a Chinese publisher. He said to me, Samuel, could you please help me to follow up with this publisher, because they paid me $2,000 of royalties to get a book published in China, but I never heard from them again. Could you please follow up to see if the book really got published in China or not? So I was really kind of trying to make him happy so that he could tell me what that one thing was not written in the book. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to please him. So I said yes. And I followed up with him. And then it turned out that publisher was so afraid of the content of the book that they decided not to publish it in China. They decided to wait for a few more years until the censorship was less strict, but it turned out the censorship became more strict. But I was able to help the book to be published as a science fiction in China. And then the second time I visited him, and he was very happy about it.
What about Taiwan? Because that's more of an open society. Why do you think they liked it so much?
Yes. Actually, the book, in Taiwan was very popular after it got published, but I also had a hard time finding a publisher in Taiwan because there was just too much competition. There are so many books of this nature being published in Taiwan. The books about spirituality, about UFOs, and also about other aspects. So I really had to look hard to find a publisher. So I really worked hard to find the right publisher by searching online to see which publishers published similar kinds of books. I also had to be very, very specific, in my presentations. I have to cater to the interest of the editor of that publisher, whether personal interests or the kind of books that they published in the past. And also I had to cater to the commercial interests, the commercial aspects of the book. So I had to give the examples of the book's success in Australia and in Japan, and also on internet, social media. So I had to cater to the publishers' both needs, the commercial, the business needs, and also the needs of the topics.
All right, this may be the most important question. What are the hidden things that he didn't share in the book? Did he share them with you?
Well, I was not allowed to talk about it. Michel Desmarquet was a man of action. The second time that I visited him was actually mostly for that purpose. He said he didn't know why the Thiaoubans were very happy about my works of getting the book published in China. Actually, at that time, the book hadn't been published in China, but were about to be published in China. But he sent me the email saying that they were very happy about the fact that the book would be published in China. He said that he would be able to reveal to me that one thing that he was not allowed to write in the book, but I had to go there personally to meet him in person. It's very reasonable because he didn't know how to type on computer. He didn't know how to really use a computer. Everything he typed was through his niece, his Vietnamese niece. So I went there in person. He told me that one thing that he was not allowed to write in the book within 5 minutes after I met him. So he was a man of action. It seems to me that if he kept longer, then some accident would have occurred, and he had to tell me within the 5 minutes of my arrival, of my meeting him. Well, the one thing he revealed to me was very specific, just like other content, other information in the book. It's not a general concept. It's not a general concept as written by the other so-called New Age book authors. I would suggest people to read the book at least 3 times. And if they're curious about the content, I can give them some hints, some information, just like puzzles, so that they can solve the puzzle and to find out what it is about. Well, if you're interested, after reading the book 3 times, if you still don't know, if you're still curious, write to me and then I'll let you know some hints.
Was all the effort that you put into to learn this knowledge, was it worth it?
Definitely worth it. It's 100% worth it. It's actually the best investment that I've ever made in my entire life. Reading this book, finding this book, reading this book, and also finding the author, knowing that information. It's actually, if you say, Samuel, how about if I give you all the wealth of Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett combined in exchange for that information? I wouldn't have traded that place. It's just that important because it's not material knowledge. It's spiritual knowledge, and also speaking of material wealth, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and some of the other wealthy people on Earth, I think they're having a very difficult lesson in life, because they need to know how to utilize their wealth in a way that would benefit other people spiritually and benefit them spiritually. I mean, to a wealthy person, it's very easy to get involved in the material aspects, such as buying luxurious cars or mansions, or be using drugs, or maybe believing in certain kind of esoteric practices in order to quote unquote live longer. It's very, very easy to get into the wrong path. So I think the wealthy people on earth have a much more challenging lesson to learn. So there's nothing to envy about them, because when you think about it, the important thing is how to respond to life challenges. And their life challenges are much more difficult to respond than ours.
So after reading the book and meeting with Desmarquet and learning this hidden information, overall, how has your life changed?
Well, before I was a very materialistic person. I wanted to become a doctor in the late 90s, because doctors at that time earned a lot of money. I also majored in economics and financial analysis. I wanted to play the financial markets to earn a lot of money, because I believed I was smart enough to beat the market, like Warren Buffett. And now I know that even if you were Warren Buffett, you wouldn't have been able to beat the market in the sense that the people really behind everything can just print more money. I mean, Warren Buffett, if you earn like $10 billion, they can just print more like money, like $13 billion. Even if you are Warren Buffett, you are nothing to them. Warren Buffett, I'm telling you, you are just nothing to them. If you're listening, Warren Buffett. And I think it's very important to know the fact that a lot of things that happen around us are not what they appear to be. If you really pay attention, if you really observe carefully, a lot of the licensed medical doctors in the United States cannot voice their opinions out on certain issues and certain topics. Their Twitter accounts get suspended. So even licensed medical doctors in the US cannot speak out on certain subjects. What is really going on around this world? If you really look into certain issues, you're going to see that mainstream media tend to mislead people. We really have to do our own homework. And we really need to see what's really happening around us by researching on our own on the specific details that are censored by the mainstream media. So this has changed my life, because this book talks about the fact that we have been misled by the politicians, by the mainstream media. We really need to focus on having our independent investigations ourselves. We need to think independently, to wake up and to act together, and to really not to fall into the traps set by certain people. So this has changed my life in this way. And right now, my main goal is to wake people up and to let them know that the world is not like what they think it is, and they need to read between the lines and to really do their own investigation.
What is the most important part of the book for you?
Well, it always keeps changing. The more I read the book, the more I realize this book is something that needs to reread and reread for many times. The first time I read it, I was fascinated by the technologies that the ETs had. And the second time, my focus changed to the stories of the Bible. And the third time I read it, it changed to a different area. And so far, my focus has been the meaning of life, like reincarnation and how we evolve in different lives, and how different how we evolve to the next level. It's like how we get bypassed to the filter that it has. So we need to purify ourselves spiritually in order to move up to a different level. And it also fascinates me that we have to experience different roles in life in different lifetimes. Right now, I'm a Chinese translator and a court interpreter. And I think my role is to take advantage of the different contacts that I have in both China and the US to let people, to let more people know about this. And also to be able to use my skills, for example, internet marketing, and also some of the other social engineering skills to to promote the book. So I'm doing everything that I can to do this.
All right. Well, can we find the book on your website or on Amazon or both?
Both. People can find this book on Amazon by searching Thiaoouba Prophecy, and people can find more information about the book on my website, which is chinasona.org/Thiaoouba. T is the capital letter T, Thiaoouba. And I have given hints to the thing that the author was not allowed to write in the book on my frequently asked questions. So people can find more information on that page.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you okay with that? And if so, how can they reach you?
Yes, they can reach me at any time. And by sending me an email, they can just go to my website and then find contact us and then send me an email over there.
I believe you have or had a scholarship about reading this book. Is that still going on?
Yes, it's still going on. Every year by July 19th, I will award a scholarship to a person who, after reading this book, writes an essay or invent something that can make the world a better world. So this year, we just awarded the scholarship to a person from Taiwan who really acted upon the suggestions in the book in reducing noise in Taiwan. So I think I encourage people to apply. Any person can apply, whether you're a student or you're working. You can apply for this scholarship. It's worth $1,000.
Is there anything else that you're working on right now that you want us to know about?
I'm also working on developing an aura camera. An aura camera can capture the human energy field of a person because it is strongly suggested that we do this as soon as possible so that it can help us to grow spiritually and also diagnose physical illness at a much earlier stage. There are aura cameras on market already, but you have to put your hand on a sensor. In that sense, I don't think that's very accurate or useful enough because I want it to become like a real camera without physical touch. So if anyone who can see auras naturally, the different colors that the person emits, please get in touch with me because we need more data in order to come up with an algorithm to develop this aura camera.
All right, Samuel, before we finish up, can you give us one more positive message?
I think the future is not set. It really depends how we act together. We need concerted actions to make the future a better place for the world. Despite what's happening around the world, the pandemic, the wars of Russia and Ukraine, and the possible conflicts between China and Taiwan, I think it really depends how we act together and to see what's really happening behind everything. Is it just the politicians who benefit from wars or from the pandemic? Or is it someone else, the industrial military complex? Or the interest groups? So we really need to open our eyes up. And if we act together, we are going to succeed as a group of people, the common people, the citizens of the world. So there's nothing to worry about. And I think there's a lot of positive hope. It really depends on our actions, and we need to act together.
Samuel, thank you for that message, and thank you again for being my guest. I really appreciate you, and I wish you success with that camera.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.